Benny Bear and Ruby Rabbit's Big Bus Trip. It was a sunny spring morning in Pinecone Forest, and Benny Bear was pacing back and forth outside his cozy log cabin. "Where is she?" he muttered, glancing at his watch. "The bus leaves in 20 minutes. Just then Ruby Rabbit came hopping up the trail, her long ears bouncing with every bound. She wore a bright blue backpack and a big grin. "Sorry, Benny," she said, panting. "I had to pack snacks. You can't go on a trip without snacks." Benny chuckled. "As long as we don't miss the bus." The two friends hurried down the hill to the village bus stop, just in time to see the big yellow bus rumble around the bend. It had Woodland Wanderer painted across the side in bold green letters. With a friendly honk-honk, the driver, Mr. Otter, opened the doors. "Hop on in," he said. "Next stop, Dandelion Meadows." Benny and Ruby found a window seat near the back. As the bus chugged along, they waved to squirrels on swings, deer tending their gardens, and chipmunks playing hopscotch on tree stumps. "I love bus trips," said Ruby, munching on a carrot muffin. "You never know who you'll meet." Just then a small voice squeaked, "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" They looked up to see a shy little hedgehog clutching a sketch pad. "Not at all," said Benny, scooting over. "I'm Benny, and this is Ruby." "I'm Hazel," the hedgehog said quietly. "I'm going to the meadows to draw flowers." Ruby's eyes lit up. "We're going to have a picnic. Want to join us?" Hazel's eyes widened. "Really? That would be lovely." As the bus rolled on, the three new friends chatted and pointed out sights, like the windy river sparkling in the sun and an owl dozing in a hammock. Suddenly there was a loud clunk. The bus gave a lurch and rolled to a stop beside a mossy old bridge. "Oh dear," said Mr. Otter, popping the hood. "Looks like the radiator's overheated. We'll be here a while." The passengers groaned. A family of raccoons began playing I Spy, while two turtles pulled out travel pillows and immediately fell asleep. Ruby, never one to waste time, said, "Let's explore. I see a trail down to the river." Benny, Hazel, and a few curious passengers followed her. They found a perfect little clearing beside the water, full of wildflowers and butterflies. Ruby laid out a blanket, and soon everyone was nibbling snacks, sipping juice, and enjoying the breeze. Hazel sat cross-legged and began to sketch the meadow, her quills trembling with excitement. "You're really good at that," Benny said, peeking over her shoulder. "Thanks," Hazel replied, blushing. "Drawing helps me feel brave." Ruby stood up and pointed across the river. "Look! A rope swing!" One by one, the animals took turns swinging over the water, laughing and splashing. Even the turtles slowly made their way down and dipped their feet in. Just as the sun reached its peak, Mr. Otter called from the hill, "All fixed, folks. Time to head on." Everyone cheered and packed up. As they boarded the bus, Hazel showed Ruby and Benny her sketch, a beautiful scene of their impromptu picnic. "That's us under the willow tree," said Benny, beaming. "Can I hang a copy in my cabin?" Hazel smiled shyly. "I'll make you both one." Back on the road, the bus soon rolled into Dandelion Meadows, a wide open field of golden blooms dancing in the wind. The animals poured off the bus, running and playing and rolling down gentle hills. Benny spread out their blanket again, and Ruby unpacked more snacks. Hazel sat beside them, drawing flowers as bees buzzed lazily by. "Best bus trip ever," Ruby said with a happy sigh. "Definitely," Benny agreed, lying back in the grass. Hazel nodded, her pencil dancing across the page. "And the best part? I made new friends." The three smiled at one another, the meadows glowing golden around them, the afternoon stretching long and full of promise. Étoile. And as the sun began to dip low in the sky, they all knew this was a day they'd remember forever. Benny Bear and Ruby Rabbit's Rainy Day Rescue. One blustery morning in Pinecone Forest, dark clouds rumbled across the sky. Benny Bear sat inside his cabin, sipping honey tea and listening to the raindrops tap against the window. "Looks like a stay-inside day," he mumbled, pulling a blanket over his big furry feet. "Knock, knock, knock." He opened the door to find Ruby Rabbit in a yellow raincoat, water dripping from her long ears. She held a soggy map in one paw and a determined look in the other. Benny, grab your boots, we've got a rescue mission. Benny blinked. A what now? Little Pip Squirrel is stuck at her aunt's house on Acorn Hill. The bridge over Muddy Creek washed out, and her aunt can't bring her back. Benny stood up at once. Then let's go get her. Moments later, Benny and Ruby trudged through puddles and sloshed along the forest trail. Benny wore his giant green galoshes and a red slicker that flapped in the wind. Ruby led the way, hopping around puddles like they were stepping stones. As they reached Muddy Creek, they saw the trouble. The old wooden bridge had collapsed into the churning brown water. A sign nearby read, "Bridge closed, strong current." On the far side of the creek, a tiny squirrel with a red scarf waved sadly from under a big umbrella. "Pip," called Ruby. "We're coming." "But how?" Benny asked, scratching his head. "We can't cross the creek and we can't fly." Ruby grinned. "No, but we can float." She pointed to a large hollow log nearby. "If we patch that up and steer it carefully, we can make it across." "Brilliant," Benny said. "Let's build a raft." They worked quickly. Benny found vines to tie everything together while Ruby stuffed the cracks with moss and leaves. Soon they had a rough but sturdy raft. Benny pushed it into the water with a mighty shove and they climbed aboard. The creek was fast and the ride was bumpy. Benny steered with a long stick and Ruby used her ears like sails to help catch the wind. Pip cheered from the far bank as the raft bumped up beside her. "Rescue team reporting for duty," said Ruby with a salute. Pip leapt aboard, wrapping her arms around Benny in a squirrel-sized hug. "I knew you'd come." The ride back was even bumpier with three aboard, and a sudden gust of wind knocked Benny's stick out of his paws. "Oh no!" he cried. "We're drifting!" The raft spun in circles. Ruby tried to paddle with her paws, and Pip squeaked in fright as a whirlpool loomed ahead. "Ha ha! Hold on tight," Benny shouted. Just then a giant branch floated by. Benny reached out, grabbed it, and used it like a paddle to steer them safely around the whirlpool. With one final push, they bumped gently against the near bank, safe and sound. They climbed out, soggy but smiling. "Mission accomplished," Ruby cheered. Benny gave a great big bear hug to both Ruby and Pip. That was quite an adventure. As they walked back through the rain, they sang a little song Ruby made up on the spot. "We braved the rain and swirling creek to help a friend who couldn't speak. Of how much love a rescue shows, from soggy boots to soggy toes." Back at Benny's cabin, they dried off by the fire, wrapped in blankets with mugs of warm cocoa in their paws. Pip yawned and leaned against Benny's soft fur. "You're the best rescuers ever." Ruby beamed. "Any time, Pip, rain or shine." The wind howled outside, but inside was warm and full of laughter, and as the rain pattered softly on the roof, Benny smiled and said, "You know, Ruby, even the rainiest days can lead to the brightest memories." Benny Bear and Ruby Rabbit's Starry Night Surprise. The sun was just dipping behind the hills of Pinecone Forest, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Benny Bear was gently rocking in his hammock, humming a tune when Ruby Rabbit came bouncing through the trees with a twinkle in her eyes. "Benny," she cried, "tonight's the night." Benny sat up. "Tonight's what night?" Ruby held up a shiny flyer. "The Starfall Festival. It's happening up on Stargazer Hill. Shooting stars, music, marshmallows, everything." Benny's eyes widened. "Oh, I love the Starfall Festival, but it's a long way to climb in the dark." Ruby winked. "Not if you're prepared. I've packed lanterns, snacks, and even a blanket big enough for two." Oh, 10 minutes later, the two friends were hiking through the twilight woods, lanterns swinging and fireflies dancing around them like tiny stars of their own. "Do you think we'll see the moon fox?" Ruby asked as they climbed. Benny chuckled. "That's just a story, Ruby." but Granny Owl says the moon fox appears only once a year, on the night the stars fall. Well, Benny said with a grin, we'll keep our eyes open. They reached the top of Stargazer Hill just as the stars began to sprinkle across the deep indigo sky. Dozens of animals had already gathered, spreading out picnic blankets and setting up tiny telescopes. A trio of raccoons strummed guitars, and a beaver family roasted marshmallows over a small fire. Everyone buzzed with excitement. Benny and Ruby found a cozy spot near the edge of the hill and laid out their blanket. Ruby passed around cocoa and cookies, and Benny set up his telescope. "First star spotted!" Ruby shouted, pointing upward. "Make a wish!" They both closed their eyes tightly. "What did you wish for?" Ruby asked. "If I tell you, it won't come true," Benny teased. As the night deepened, the stars began to fall, tiny streaks of light zipping across the sky like glittering fireflies. Everyone oohed and ahed with wonder. Suddenly, there was a soft rustle in the grass behind them. Ruby turned. "Did you hear that?" From the trees stepped a figure unlike any they had ever seen. A sleek silver creature with fur that shimmered like moonlight and eyes that glowed soft blue. Benny's mouth dropped open. "Ruby, is that—" "The moon fox," Ruby whispered, eyes wide. The mysterious fox stepped forward silently and sat at the edge of the hill, gazing up at the sky. The entire hilltop fell silent. Even the guitars stopped. The moon fox raised its nose and let out a quiet musical howl that echoed across the hill like wind chimes in a breeze. As it did, the stars above sparkled even brighter, and the biggest shooting star of the night blazed a trail across the sky. Everyone gasped. The moon fox looked at Benny and Ruby, blinked once, then turned and vanished into the woods, as silently as it had arrived. Ruby stared after it, her mouth open. "Did that really happen?" Benny nodded slowly. "I think it did." The animals began to chatter excitedly. "Did you see it? It was magical. I never believed the stories until now." The music started up again, and the Starfall Festival sparkled even more brightly than before. But Benny and Ruby just lay on their backs side by side, staring up at the sky in peaceful wonder. After a while, Ruby whispered, "What did you wish for, Benny?" Benny smiled. "A night just like this, with my best friend." Ruby giggled. "That's what I wished for too." As the last star streaked across the night sky and the forest below shimmered with lantern lights, Benny and Ruby knew that some stories aren't just bedtime tales. Some stories come true, if you know where to look and who to share them with.